All right, man, peace. So NBA super dad LeVar Ball once again made the news because of some rather incendiary comments that he made about the Lakers coach, Luke Walton. The question is not whether or not what LeVar Ball said was in bounds or out of bounds, but how much it would affect his son Lonzo in the locker room, and whether or not there's any credence to his claims about Luke Walton. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in. And also, please pay very close attention to some of the points that Colin Cowherd and Jason Whitlock make. I firmly believe that this show, Speak for Yourself, this roundtable show that they consistently have the best sports conversations of all the sports debate shows.
Welcome back. We're joined now by Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard and the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to the Lakers, whose season just went from bad to worse after the team got blown out by Charlotte Friday night. LeVar Ball called out Coach Luke Walton, saying the players, quote, don't want to play for him. Walton said the criticism didn't bother him, but when Lonzo was asked about it, he didn't exactly back up his coach.
That's just his opinion. He's coached me my whole life, so he's definitely gonna have a strong opinion about it. That's just what it is.
Are you fine with Luke being your coach? I mean, do you like him as a coach?
I'll play for anybody.
You say play with anybody. Does that mean there's still preferences, like or dislike?
My job is to play basketball. I don't decide who the coach is.
Exactly. Let me say this. This young cat, Lonzo Ball, he certainly has his head on his shoulders firmly screwed. LeVar Ball did a great job raising him. And as long as he continues to mature as an NBA basketball player, the Laker fans will be very happy with what he brings to the table mentally. Because you're going to find, as the team gets better and better, and they're subjected to more pressurized situations, whether it be late regular season games that are going to result in playoff berths, or even playoff games where he has to execute down the stretch, his level-headedness is going to be a major factor in them being successful. So certain people might say that he did not come out strongly enough for his coach, Luke Walton. It's not his job to be a proponent of his coach. It's his job to make sure that he executes the game plan on the floor. There are very few players in NBA history who played with one coach their entire career. Kobe Bryant didn't, Michael Jordan didn't, Shaquille O'Neal didn't, LeBron James didn't. So why should Lonzo Ball stand there and espouse Luke Walton as if he's John Wooden? Makes no sense.
All right, Colin, should Lonzo have offered up a stronger defense for Luke Walton?
No, that was very Brady-like. I loved it. I'll be honest with you, I don't want my point guard and quarterback in politics. It's not his job. I liked what he said. I'll play for anybody.
I agree. I couldn't have put it any better.
That's what I want for my point guard. This kid's DNA, he's the only Ball member who's not crazy.
Oh, that's highly possible. Who knows? That's highly possible that he's the only member of the Ball family that's not crazy. But I will say this about LeVar Ball. You can accuse him of being crazy, but there's a very thin line between insanity and brilliance.
His DNA is, I'm going to give you a matter of fact. He always stays on point. I'm a point guard. I'll play for anybody. I love that.
I agree.
That's Russell Wilson. That's Tom Brady. I love that kid.
Russell Wilson, Super Bowl, Tom Brady.
Can we just stop with the rings?
Now, how could you make that comparison when the kid just started? It's very clear that Jason Whitlock has a personal axe to grind with Lonzo Ball's dad, LeVar Ball, and he's taking it out on Lonzo. And once again, it just shows you the level of immaturity of much of the sports media and the media at large, that they're going to try to denigrate a young man like this, 19, 20 years old, who's trying to create his own legacy, who's living out his dream. And because they're upset by how his father depicts himself, they're rooting against him so that they can rub it in LeVar Ball's face. Once again, that's a sign that many of these people are not happy with their own life. And I like Whitlock. I've likened Whitlock unto a Reggie Jackson. He either hits a home run or he strikes out. And you're going to see him hit a home run later on in this segment. But no disrespect to Jason Whitlock. He certainly has some issues. When you look at anybody who has some of the weight problems that he has, that tells me that he has self-discipline problems and he has self-image issues. When you look at Christine Hirate-Milehi, it was recently revealed that the so-called light-skinned brother that she's been dating her and him had a huge breakup, which is not a surprise. No man who has even a sliver of masculinity will be able to endure in a relationship with somebody like her for very long. People like her and Jamel Hill, they cannot maintain relationships. That's why they need to seek attention through, through other forums like the media.
Lonzo Ball is now Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. His dad is out there clowning Luke Walton. Yeah. And this man...
I think Whitlock likes LaVar Ball. LaVar Ball is a hard guy to dislike. I mean, the people who dislike LaVar Ball, you can tell they're just very unhappy with themselves. I think that Whitlock would like to go out on the town with LaVar and knock back a few beers and talk shit. But he can't do it because he has to play a certain angle.
Man shouldn't be like, hey, man, I love playing for Luke. My dad needs to stay in his lane. Why not that?
Why would he do that for? That makes no sense. Who is Luke Walton that Lonzo should take Luke Walton's side over his father? God forbid if something horrendous or something horrible happens to Lonzo Ball, his dad's going to be there for him. It's Luke Walton's job to be there for him. Once Luke Walton no longer has a stake in Lonzo's life, he's going to disconnect because there was never any real connection there in the first place. Once again, Lonzo Ball shows a great deal of discernment. He seems to understand very well what's going on around him.
No, instead he said, I love basketball, anybody can coach me.
I'm with you in this from this standpoint. I don't think this means Lonzo doesn't like Luke. I think this is who he is. Yeah. He's got this low-key personality, and he means what he says. However, he has got to distance himself from his dad's quotes. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. I was talking to a head coach about this last night.
Well, the question is, are the Lakers going to distance themselves from his dad's quotes? Why hasn't Magic Johnson come out and distance the organization from what LaVar Ball has stated? You know why? Because they understand that there may be a sliver of truth to what he's saying. Many times in life, people want to reject the message because they don't like the messenger. LaVar Ball is another person in this society who tells a lot of inconvenient truths. And, we have to separate personal dislike for someone from the veracity of their statements. Bottom line of it all is that the Lakers have far too much talent for them to be 13, 14 games under 500 at the halfway point of the season. And yes, I agree with LaVar that Luke Walton's substitution patterns should be scrutinized. Period. You don't have to like it. It just is what it is. As I've already stated, the only issue that I have with LaVar's statements is how they may affect his son in the locker room. LaVar should have sat back and thought about that before he made those statements. And that's in no way to try to inhibit him expressing himself as a man. But on that level, he has to think about his son.
And he said, look, this could get to a point where players, number one, they question, does Lonzo feel this way because his dad is saying it? Is he having conversations with his dad? But also, if you're going to be the leader of the team, at some point, players are going to start saying, you got to be your own man. You can't lead our team if your dad is still speaking for you, or at least there's the appearance that he's speaking for you. So,
well, if the other players are going to tell Lonzo Ball that he has to distance himself from his dad because he has to do that in order to lead their team, that really is a referendum on the coach. Because the job of the players is to do what the coach says. The job of the players is not to tell the point guard, we're only going to listen to you if you distance yourself from your dad. So if that's truly what's going on in the locker room, that once again affirms LaVar Ball's statement that Luke Walton has no control of the locker room. Because whatever he says is not supposed to be an issue. If they're a successful team with a winning culture, they're not worried about what LaVar Ball is saying. So, no, Lonzo should not have to disavow his father's comments. What he needed to do is what he did, which is to say that his father has the right to his opinion. He has his own views, and that he'll play for anybody. That's his job.
So Lonzo has got to distance himself. I know it's hard. I know he loves his dad, of course. But he's got to say, like you said, hey, that's how he feels, but I love Luke. I mean, I'm cool with Luke.
But what if you don't love Luke? Yeah. The reports are the chemistry's a mess.
Well,
and I believe it. Kyle Kuzma recently came out maybe like 2 weeks ago and stated that there was a certain game where he felt like the team gave up. What does that tell you? Those guys are all 22, 23 years old. You're giving up already? It's barely halfway through the season. They're not feeling what Luke Walton is saying. They brought in a coach in Luke Walton to once again try to get them to play like Golden State. Look, the Golden State style is not going to work for everybody. It's like teams that try to run a triangle. To run a triangle, you have to have a team with high basketball IQ. You also have to have great low post play. Your low post performer in the triangle has to be a great passer and also be able to finish in the low post. Your center has to be a great passer. Luke Longley was a great passer on that second three-peat team. Dennis Rodman was a great passer in the low post. Of course, you had Michael Jordan down there in the low post, who was a threat to score or pass. The Lakers, you had Shaq, who, of course, was probably the most dominant low post presence of the last 20-plus years. And you had the great Kobe Bryant, who was a dynamic scorer and also a good passer, and Pau Gasol, who was a great passer. Point being is this: your style of play has to match your personnel. Every team can't play like the Warriors. So you had the New Orleans Pelicans, who went and hired Alvin Gentry. I'm already on record as stating I have no idea why teams hire him. Some people are just assistant coaches. Luke Walton may just be an assistant coach. In order to play like the Golden State Warriors, you have to have 3 of the top 10 all-time greatest shooters on one team, which they happen to have. Everybody cannot play like that. So you need a coach who can bring out the best in the personnel. The way the Lakers are built right now, to me, they're more built to play a grit and grind style of play. They don't have many long-range shooters. Lonzo, to me, could be a very gritty player if he was to be the point guard in that type of offense. From what I understand, they're thinking about bringing in Coach Fizdale. Of course, he has a background in Miami with Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley. He also coached in Memphis. I think that he'd be a much better fit for that team. Brandon Ingram has shown himself to be a player who plays with a lot of heart, goes to the basket real hard, good finisher in traffic. Kuzma, of course, plays with a lot of heart as well. And Lonzo is a very, very underrated defender. Very good defensive player from what I've seen.
It's early, Colin. They got a young team. There's no veteran voice in there. But Chris, he's trapped, okay? He's trapped between his head coach, a sheepish 20-year-old rookie, playing for the Lakers. He's trapped between his head coach and his father. I don't think he can do anything here. Nothing that he says is going to make anybody pleased.
Exactly. He should not be trying to please anyone else. He's the number 2 pick in the draft. He's playing very well in the last month. He got off to a rough start, of course, which was accentuated by the hyper scrutiny of the liberal media, who hates the fact that he has a strong-minded black father. And right now, he's trending upward. He cannot be sidetracked by white noise involving Luke Walton.
What needs to happen is Magic Johnson has to get involved here. This is the face of the Lakers franchise. Magic Johnson met privately with Lavar in November, and now 6 weeks later, Lavar's breaking that promise.
He did it a week later.
This is not Lonzo Ball's problem anymore.
I agree.
Magic Johnson has to step in here and say, dude, Lavar, this is enough.
And do what?
Unless Magic Johnson agrees with Lavar. Maybe Magic Johnson's not going to step to the forefront because he agrees with Lavar. You'd be surprised. It's like in the scriptures, in public, the Pharisees would disagree with Christ, but then they would sneak to him at night. Like Nicodemus, they sneaked him at night and ask him questions. You never know. Magic might speak to LaVar when he comes back to the States and ask him what he thinks about Luke Walton. Who knows? Here's what I do know. I do know that that team, that young LA Lakers team, they have too much talent to be 14 games under 500 halfway through the season. And Rob Pelinka and Magic are talking about Luke Walton's performance and his ability to maximize the personnel that they currently have.
I mean, LaVar's already broken his promise. LaVar's track record is what it is.
So Magic doesn't need to defend Luke Walton, his coach?
He can, but it won't do anything. LaVar is the issue. He's an island. And there's only one person important on that island, and it's LaVar. I don't believe LiAngelo, LaMelo, or Lonzo are important on LaVar Island.
Well, if that were the case, then he would not have been in their life in the first place. There are many men out here who operate according to the mind state that Whitlock is alleging LaVar Ball operates according to. And they're called, quote unquote, deadbeat dads. And when I say that, I'm not talking about how many of these bitter women would describe it. I'm talking about literally. You have males out here who don't care about their children or don't care about children in general, will move in with another woman and molest or kill the child. Those are men who mentally live on an island. Okay? It is impossible for me to believe that LaVar Ball does not put his sons first in regards to his overall plan for their family when everything that he does involves their sons. He's trying to create a legacy and a business that is family oriented. He purposefully went out and not only did he have 3 sons, but he pre-planned it. That's why I always tell brothers, you have to truly scrutinize and analyze the type of female that you're dealing with, not even from a procreation perspective, who you're going to have a child with, but just dating. This man LaVar Ball specifically chose a female whose personality matched his and whose stature was tall enough that it would guarantee that his sons would be tall enough to make the NBA. That shows you how forward thinking he was. So no, I do not believe that he's living on LaVar Island. That makes no sense looking at how he has planned everything out.
He's run over high school coaches. He's run over whoever gets in his way, and he's trying to run over Luke Walton. And this kid at some point has to say, you know what, Dad, we got our relationship, but not in my profession.
Okay.
Well, who knows? Maybe he's done that already. And maybe LaVar has just stated, son, it's no problem. You go on and you do what you have to do with the Lakers, and I'm going to go on and build up our brand, and I'm going to, if asked, I'm going to give an honest answer. There are certain people who are totally uninhibited with their honesty. You know, some of us have filters and others of us don't. And LaVar's one of those people that if you ask him a question, he's going to give you an answer. There's certain people like that who are just so honest that the best that they'll give you is an I prefer not to answer type of response. Because they know that when they speak, they're going to speak their truth, aka the truth from their perspective, and it's going to hurt people. Some like LaVar Ball do not care who they hurt because he feels like it's going to make the situation better. I remember I saw the feature with Kobe Bryant when he did the sit-down interview with Ahmad Rashad, and he used the analogy of sitting at a dinner table and the person across from you having some food stuck in their teeth. He said you can either allow them to continue on with that food stuck in their teeth, or you can have that uncomfortable moment when you tell them there's something stuck in your teeth. You know, it is what it is.
Okay, so before LaVar said this, there was you were in Vegas, probably didn't see this story, up late at night. The rest of us were working. But they had a player and a coach meeting. They blew off a practice. So the chemistry is a mess before the comment.
Thank you, sir.
If the chemistry, and if you've been watching the Lakers for 2 weeks, they're getting blown out by bad teams at home. What if it's a mess? And what if what LaVar said is true? Should then Lonzo come out and defend a coach that he doesn't believe in?
Well, Colin, you know, you've already laid out the proper scenario and established the proper context. But we all know that the real issue is that we live in a politically correct society, and there are certain standards of propriety that have been set up to make sure that certain demographics do not seem to be empowered. They don't want fans or players to have the ability to overtly decide who's going to coach a team. And that's the bottom line of it. That's the real issue in regards to LaVar's comments and the onus that's being put on his son to try to swear allegiance to a coach who's never done anything in the NBA other than babysit one of the great teams of the last 20 years.
Well, let's play the what if game. What if the mess is because all the attention is on Lonzo when Kyle Kuzma's a better player, Brandon Ingram's a better player?
Well, no, right now what they are, they're better scorers. You really can't compare Lonzo and what he brings as a player to what they bring as players. Lonzo Ball has shown that he's had a great effect on their overall culture in regards to how they play on the basketball court. It's Luke Walton's job to raise him up to the point where he can be someone who the team can depend on in the fourth quarter. That's his job as a coach. When you start sitting guys in the fourth quarter because you don't know what to do with them, that means that you don't know how to bring out certain things in them as a coach. Greg Popovich recently was on record as stating that he was overcoaching LaMarcus Aldridge. So if Greg Popovich can admit that his approach to a certain player was wrong, Luke Walton is going to have to look in the mirror and figure out how to make Lonzo a better player. That's his job.
Lonzo isn't what his dad hyped him up to be, and there were some of us at the very beginning of this. It's like, this is going to eventually create drama on this team. All this focus on the 33% field goal shooter, the 50% free throw shooter, the guy that can't really play defense.
That's a lie. He's playing very, very good defense. He's probably the best defender on the Lakers right now. So that's a lie. Beyond that, his shooting is improving. And furthermore, you cannot establish how good a player he is through 30 games of his rookie season. It's asinine.
All the focus is on Lonzo. That's not going to play forever amongst a group of competitive athletes.
But don't you think the bigger risk here is not this year? This team's not going to make the playoffs. I was wrong. That's fine. But next year, when the free agents are supposed to come, are potential free agents and potential coaches to replace Luke Walton going to look at this mess and say, geez, do I want anything to do with that? Do I want to get near that toxic situation?
That's not a...
Believe me, if you're a young up-and-coming coach, if the worst thing that you have to deal with is your point guard's loudmouth father, you'll deal with it just to get the experience of coaching the LA Lakers. The LA Lakers are a national brand and an international brand. Nationally, they're on par with the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees. There's no coach who's going to turn down a job coaching the Lakers because they don't want to be bothered with LaVar Ball. All right? So I'm not buying that one.
It's not a bad
That's Lonzo.
Well, Luke Walton might not have been bothered by LaVar's criticism, but the same can't be said about the Mavs coach and the head of the Coaches Association, Rick Carlisle, who went off on LaVar and on the media who gave LaVar a voice.
As president of the Coaches Association, I view the recent ESPN article as a disgrace. Quite honestly.
Well, I view your recent coaching performances as a disgrace. I mean, your teams are barely, if they're even making the playoffs, they're barely making them in the last 5 years. So you need to concentrate more on your performance on the court as a coach than you are LaVar Ball or ESPN's coverage of LaVar Ball.
Quite honestly. Luke Walton is a terrific young coach who's bringing along a young team, and it's a difficult task. Printing an article where the father of an NBA player has an opinion that is printed as anything like legitimate erodes trust. It erodes the trust that we built with ESPN, and our coaches are upset.
Well, once again, the relationship between ESPN and the NBA is not based in trust. It's based in money. That's number one. Number two, the reason why you quote a LaVar Ball is because, number one, what he does is he moves the meter. And number two, what's implied is that he may have some insight or some inside information in regards to how the players view him. Or pardon me, how the players view Luke Walton. When I say him, I'm referring to Luke Walton. So that's why they quote LaVar Ball. And it's obvious to see that. Rick Carlisle is a coach. He needs to continue to speak from a coaching perspective and not try to dictate to the media who they should cover and who they should quote. That's not his job. His job is to improve the play of Dennis Smith Jr. and Harrison Barnes, etc. And in that role, he's failing.
Because Luke Walton does not deserve that.
Whitlock, you have an issue with Carlisle's criticism of LaVar in the media? And
Yes and no. First of all, really respect Rick Carlisle. I think he's a tremendous coach.
He's a good coach. Tremendous is Greg Popovich and Phil Jackson and Pat Riley. He's not a tremendous coach. He's a nice coach. And I give Rick credit. He always makes sure that his teams are competitive. He was good in Indiana. He was good in Detroit. He's been good in Dallas, but let's be for real. The one championship that he has on his record was when LeBron James imploded for whatever reason he imploded for. Whether it was because LeBron's wife was sleeping with Rashard Lewis, which is what the allegations were, or whether he just folded up under pressure, or whether he received some orders to not play as well as he could have played. Who knows? But when the only championship on your ledger comes under those circumstances, I cannot call you a great coach.
But, and I know what they're fearing. They don't want the NBA to become AAU, where the parents and have all this control over the coaches. I get it. But I want some consistency from Rick Carlisle and the Coaches Association, and I want some self-awareness of the society we've created.
Agreed.
Everybody has an opinion about everything.
Agreed.
And we all take it all credible. Greg Popovich has been running his mouth about presidential politics all year. And ESPN's been slapping it up and everybody's been oh, Greg, the gym coach Ken Reeves, he's talking presidential politics.
Hey, this is why I call Whitlock the Reggie Jackson of sports analysts. You know, this one he's hitting out the park. And when he talks about the gym coach Ken Reeves, he's talking about The White Shadow, which was a TV show that was on in the late 70s about a white basketball coach who was coaching a bunch of black kids, you know, a couple white kids, Hispanic kids on the team. But, you know, basically that show was one of the forerunners of a very popular genre of films that came out in the 90s, late 80s into the 90s about Caucasian teachers who went to save black students, you know, like Dangerous Minds, etc. That was a genre that really became popular in the late 80s, early 90s. But the show The White Shadow was a forerunner of that. And that's what Whitlock is referring to when he calls Popovich the White Shadow, which is a sentiment that I touched on when I stated that the reason why Greg Popovich likes to push this super liberal stance is because how else is he going to lure black free agents to his team? That's, to me, that's obviously a hustle. And of course, you have Steve Kerr also running his mouth about Donald Trump. And we know he has to make sure that he stays in line because he's coaching in the Bay Area under Joe Lacob, an out-and-out homosexual, and you know, other people of that ilk. You know, remember, the Bay Area is not just Oakland, it's San Francisco. We know what San Francisco is the capital of. So when you have these people coming out and making all these political statements, you have to look at their own affiliations. So just to get back to the point, as Whitlock put so well, it's interesting to see these people try to castigate LeVar Ball for speaking his mind on a topic that they claim he doesn't know about, when they love to talk about politics and everybody's supposed to take them so seriously.
The White Shadow is talking presidential, and we've applauded it, and ESPN has celebrated it, and everybody loves it. LeVar Ball knows more about basketball than Greg Popovich knows about presidential politics.
Absolutely. Great point.
So be consistent. We allow everybody. We got people that don't have one credible sports opinion who make their living as alleged sports broadcasters, but the only thing they can get attention talking about is President Trump.
Shots fired at Jamel Hill. Shots fired at Jamel Hill. Go ahead, bro.
And we allow it. Sports broadcasters. And every opinion they got on Trump is a big deal, and we treat it as a big deal.
Thank you, sir. It's the same thing I said. But you know what that is, Whitlock? That's a lot of these little lame so-called pro-black dudes, you know, who got all aroused when their so-called quote-unquote liberal black queen stepped up and called Trump a racist. Why is that? Because they venerate and worship her. So it's very easy to understand why you were able to see through that and why other people are able to see through that. But at the same time, it's very easy to understand why the liberal media made such a big deal about it. Jamel Hill is black and she's a woman. So they want to take what she says and act as if it has more depth and gravity than it has. It was very, very simple-minded, low-level evaluation of Donald Trump. But that's what I would expect from someone like her. As I tell you brothers all the time, the liberal woman, particularly the liberal black woman, has three altars. The racialist altar, where she likes to race bait and talk about race and the issues between the various ethnicities as if she's knowledgeable. She has the globalist altar, where she wants everybody to come together. That's why you'll notice on many of these female social media pages, they have the rainbow flag. You know, they love gays, they love lesbians, they love trannies. They want to hold hands with everybody. They're supposedly so open-minded. But their major altar is the feminist altar, which is for female empowerment over men. So always, brothers, please tread lightly when dealing with these broads because they have different chambers.
They don't have a sports opinion. So LaVar's in great company with Popovich, Steve Kerr, and all the people running their mouths about stuff they don't know anything about.
Agreed.
And everybody knew the Lavar Lonzo thing. Lakers drafted it. Buyer beware. Caveat emptor.
Go ahead, Colin. Spit that Latin, man.
But this isn't a shock. His dad wasn't reticent, quiet, reclusive, and started talking. Rob Pelinka and Magic sat down and said, okay, about 3 times a year, Dad's going to be loony. And they said, Lonzo Ball, UCLA, Brand, next Magic. Part of this move with Lonzo, because he got eaten alive by De'Aaron Fox, some of it was business. This is the downside of the Lonzo Ball business.
Well, let's understand something. The best thing that ever happened to De'Aaron Fox was LaVar Ball. Because De'Aaron Fox became the guy that the media was rooting for to perform well because they wanted to make LaVar Ball eat crow in regards to how much he was promoting his son. De'Aaron Fox has not done shit this year. Neither has Josh Jackson. And it's only because of the bumper crop of great rookies that have performed above and beyond expectations. People like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. And, of course, how well Ben Simmons has played, even though I don't consider him a real rookie. But I will put Lonzo as number 4 on the depth chart of Rookie of the Year when you look at how he's played. Once again, De'Aaron Fox has not done shit. And neither has Josh Jackson.
Dad talks.
And they underestimated how many times a year. 3 times a month, maybe. Whitlock, great point. That's a tremendous point. I had not thought of that, and you're right.
Well, of course you didn't think of that. You're a liberal Negro. Your brain doesn't function on that level. It's like, when I make a video and I get these guys, especially now that my channel is growing, I get these guys in the comments who are not familiar with the thought process of the channel. They come in, do you have any proof of what you're saying? It's like, dude, you got to watch the video again, man. You have to listen and not just hear. But at the end of the day, I can't teach you how to think like me because my brain is operating on a different wavelength than yours. That's why you don't think of the things that I think of, because your brain doesn't function how my brain functions. The same way with Chris Broussard and Jason Whitlock. Chris Broussard would never have been able to come upon a point like that because his brain doesn't work like that. Everything is about brain functionality.
If Rick Carlisle's going to make a charge like this, then you're right. I mean, Popovich, even though I agree, I like what they're saying, but essentially what has happened...
Of course, because you're a liberal Negro. Once again, behind every liberal Negro is a liberal Caucasian. So, of course, you like what they're saying. You like chaos with no plan.
Is if we like what you say, we don't care if you have no expertise in that. But if we don't like it, then we jump bad. Now,
well, that's liberal 101. You guys, most of you guys are fascists. You like to tell people to do things that you don't want to be told to do. If people disagree with you, they're misogynists, they're this, they're that, they're they're stuck in the 50s or the 40s, they're ignorant, yada yada yada.
Now, Carlisle, what I really I understand as a coach where he's coming from.
Sure.
Of course, I
coaches
were coaches. Yeah, they were like, this is ridiculous. He has a misunderstanding of the media's relationship with the NBA. He says ESPN, should back up the coaches. No, we shouldn't. ESPN or Fox Sports or whoever, our duty is not to back up the coaches, it's to report what is news. And look, in today's society, we had what some people would call a reality TV star win the presidency. The way everybody covered his campaign, because every day before he was president, CNN and every network, it was all Trump all the time because he might say something outlandish. Now it's spilled into sports and everything else, and this is newsworthy. I hate to say it. If he had tweeted it and not told ESPN, it still would have been just as big.
Absolutely. And that hits on a point that I make repeatedly on this channel, which is the old school style of media reporting has been seriously marginalized by the popularity of social media, because now everybody is a reporter. The media no longer really breaks stories anymore. Now you have regular citizens who break stories. They can go on Twitter, they can go on Snapchat, they can go on YouTube, make a video right away. And everyone is now allowed to put forth their own perspective. They don't have to wait for the newspaper to tell them what to think about certain issues. And this has hurt the print media. This is, this has made many of the more notable members of the print media be forced to have to conform to standards of journalism that are utilized in social media, meaning they have to give a hot take even when they're not informed.
So he's got a platform.
Okay, very great points made about Carlisle. Let me look at it from this point of view. He's speaking for the coaching fraternity. As you said, they don't want this to become AAU basketball. There's literally no precedent for this in NBA history. Do other coaches look at this and say, good job, Rick Carlisle? Well, I bet Rick Carlisle's asking them, hey, can you guys back me up? Because if you looked on social media, Black Twitter and the whole African-American community is laughing at Rick Carlisle. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What Rick Carlisle needs is...
Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but you understand, when you talk about so-called Black Twitter, a lot of those Negroes are woke. A lot of them are late to the Lavar Ball party. A lot of them were against him when he first came into prominence. And they jumped on his bandwagon when he got into the back and forth with Christine Leahy, because that's how the internet revolutionaries are. Their brains function at a very low level. The so-called pro-blacks and internet revolutionaries, they're just looking for arguments and emotional exchanges. Their brains don't operate on a high level, so they don't really know what they think. But at the end, but now they're starting to see a lot of the points that LaVar Ball has put forth starting to materialize in regards to his business. So now they want to jump on board. But Rick Carlisle is, his job is to defend the Coaches Association. When you're representative of a union like that, you're going to say things that even he probably knows don't make any sense. But he has to say something.
Is Doc Rivers or Ty Lue or an African-American NBA coach to back him up and say, you know what, Rick Carlisle's right. I like what he said about LaVar Ball. Now, if that happens, I think it'll carry a little more weight, because this stuff right here...
No, it's not going to carry any weight whatsoever, because LaVar Ball doesn't care what race or color you are when you quote-unquote come against him. And most of these black coaches don't need to be worried about LaVar Ball. They need to be worried about their teams. All right, Dwayne Casey and Tyronn Lue and Doc Rivers, they need to sit their asses down and worry about their teams. They don't need to be worried about coming against LaVar Ball, because they're the last hired and the first fired. So don't worry about what LaVar's talking about. Rick Carlisle could coach a sub-500 team for 5-6 years in a row and keep his job. A so-called black coach cannot do that. So they should not be worried about trying to piggyback off of something that Rick Carlisle said. To hell with him.
I think every coach agrees with. I talked to an African American
come out and
coach.
say it, Doctor.
Well, let me correct it. Other than Marvin Lewis in professional sports, a black coach can't keep. But then again, Marvin Lewis hasn't been sub 500. He just hasn't had success in the playoffs. But just to return back to my point, that black coaches don't need to be worried about Rick Carlisle. They need to be worried about making sure that their team is performing well on the court. Because if their teams don't perform, they're going to get fired. Once again, Rick Carlisle can keep his job and be sub 500 for 3-4 years in a row and keep his.
And he totally agreed with Carlisle.
Well, I mean, coaches support coaches. I mean, anytime somebody's fired after Nick Saban's beaten him 13 times, he's like, I can't believe Tennessee's firing.
Well, in this regard, they should support him, because what happened to Luke Walton is unfair. Honest to goodness,
No, it's not unfair. And once again, I touched on this in another video. It's funny to me how much of a bleeding heart the media suddenly has for people like Luke Walton, when the media, particularly the sports media, they specialize in demonizing coaches that they don't like and getting them fired. They specialize in it. So all of a sudden, they're so sorry for Luke Walton and what's going on with him. But as I brought out already, LaVar Ball is a litmus test for the hypocrisy in the liberal media and the sports media. Remember, once again, the liberal media claim to hate Donald Trump so much. But when it came time for Donald Trump to go against LaVar Ball, they all sided with Donald Trump.
LaVar Ball needs to pipe down and let his son have his professional career. My mother shouldn't be calling up to Fox Sports complaining or holding press. It's crazy.
She knows so little about TV.
Coming up.
But anyway, I included this conversation because I thought that it was by far the best exchange of understanding and ideas in regards to this situation in proper context. But anyway, peace.